And good day. Thanks for joining us. I am Tamara Scott. You're listening to Truth for Our Time, where we help you live God's Word in today's world, because if He expects you to live through it, He has directed you how to do it somewhere in His Word. So we are thrilled to have this 58 minutes with you each week. We do the show live each Friday, 10 a.m., and if you can join us on Webcast One Live Studios, we'd love to have you. Of course, the phone lines are always open, 515-244-0077, 515-244-0077 is how the other big boys say it. And if you're listening on air, noon Sundays, thank you so much to 99.3 for sharing the air with us and being able to allow us to bring you some truth for our time each week. When the headlines hit home, we're helping you when the headlines hit home. Joining me today on the phones, two friends, two warriors in the battle, two women who have done great work in protecting the education system and thus your children and America's future. Lynn Taylor is the Common Core Diva. You've heard her before on this show, and she has her own following. Common Core Diva. It's WordPress, Lynn. Is that how they find you?
Yes, it is. It's www.commoncorediva, that's all run together, .wordpress.com.
.wordpress.com. Thank you, ma'am. And on the other phone is one of our other good friends in the battle, someone who has a conference call weekly where folks can join in and learn what's happening across the country in battling this Common Core, and her own radio show, Alice Linehan. Thank you so much, Alice, for joining us.
Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to be with you, ladies.
And give our listeners the contact information or how they can find you or your website.
Yes, you can find me and the information about the weekly call at womenonthewall.org, or my own personal blog is voicesempower, EMPOER.com. And you can find me there.
Very good. Well, I'm titling it Crazy Days Friday. There's just so much in the headlines, absolutely so much crazy happening. You'd like to think that it's laughable or this just really isn't happening, but it's to the point where you don't know what to post and what not to post as satire and as what is real. And I posted one this week that I think was satire, and I thought I took it off later because I think it was confusing people. But that was Bruce Jenner's transgender clothing line at Target. You know, why not? Why absolutely not? The way we knew it wasn't real is because they were talking about pretending to be female, men pretending to be female. And I thought, we just did the LGBTQ conference call, and there's no way they'd let you get by with talking like that. So, ladies, first on the list I had for us today, Houston. This is your state, Miss Alice Linehan. Houston Elementary, Big Bear Elementary. Parents no longer allowed to walk their kids to school.
It's actually quite shocking, but when you've been in the battle like we have, and like you said, putting out information, you think, surely this cannot be correct. But it's this slow, incremental takeover of parental rights through policies and regulations at the local level. And, you know, they make it sound like it's for the good of the child, when in fact it's taking the rights of parents away and putting the role of the family in the hands of the school. And we're going down this road incrementally, and until parents speak up like they did in Houston, Texas. And you know, I want you to know, one of the leaders or the troopers down there in Magnolia is Ginger Russell, who has helped to get this story out. And she also is the one who helped get the story out about C-Scope. Her mother was the first one to discover it. And so it's this slow, incremental takeover, but it's with the tenacity and with parents stepping up that we're actually going to turn this around, I believe, and save our country.
Well, and I just don't think people realize, we think not my school, not my child, but the teachers in my school are friendly, or but my teacher's a Christian. I'm sorry, there are great people who work within the schools. This is not anti-teacher, anti-individual, but it's the overarching policy that seems to be coming. And in this case, it was coming from Principal, is that Holly Ray? Is that her name? Principal Ray? But Frank Young was another one that I think Fox, the local Fox channel, interviewed. And he said they're insinuating that we as parents don't have the ability to decide what is right for our children, but thus the school district does. How crazy is that? We all get there are bad parents out there. We get that. But why do those, I hate to use terms, liberals, leftists, progressives. I hate to use terms because every so often we find something we can agree on with somebody in one of those sets, and I don't want to divide us. But why is it that those who push the big government mantra assume that we have to go to the lowest common denominator and harm everyone and their rights to enable those who refuse to live up to their responsibility?
That's why I think it's slow and incremental that we would hand over our rights. You know, one of the things I saw a report on it this morning, and there was a mother that said, you know, she knew that the policy was in place and she was just following along. Well, it's in following along because generally, you know, we follow rules and regulations. We follow the law. Normal, everyday law-abiding citizens follow the law. And when people in positions of power over our children and over our families put in laws and policies that take our rights away, we cannot allow that to happen. What makes the United States great is freedom and liberty.
Miss Lynn, go ahead and jump in here anytime, but okay. I think Alice is onto something. None of us want to be the ones to speak out when someone may not be doing what is well. We all think it's not going to impact us, and certainly we want to do whatever we can to help those few kids who need help. But I'm just surprised here that the environmentalists haven't jumped on this, because now you have to drive your student to school. You have to sit in a line, they say, that takes an hour. And isn't it much more dangerous to have all this traffic and kids weaving through cars than parents walking kids to school?
Well, I think absolutely, and I know when I shared this particular incident that happened in Texas on my Facebook wall, I had at least two parents from over on the coast of North Carolina say that that's already been going on here in North Carolina as well. And you do bring up a good point, Tamara. Why aren't the environmentalists all over this? Because we know that a lot of the agenda in some of the things that are going on in education is all about the green movement, all about the social justice of why aren't we taking better care of our earth. But, you know, let's stop and think about it. As Alice has pointed out, we're all raised to obey authority. Especially those of us who've been raised in Christian homes. We've been, you know, it's been drummed into us, you know, obey those who are over you. And I know that we've got some wonderful parents out there, but I also know with the language that's being written, that has been written into the Every Student Succeeds Act, we're going to see more and more parental rights encroached upon. We've already seen how Arnie Duncan laid out a parenting guide for the parents, which outraged several thousands of people, and we got to the point of, well, how dare the government tell me I need help to raise my child? But yet that's exactly what we're going to see when everything with this ESSA comes into place, because everything is going to be done in the name of either student achievement or student success, which will encompass the families. How do I raise my child? Because after all, my child has to go out there and achieve all these competencies and all these benchmarks, this college career readiness, and it's absolutely insane.
And so, ladies, let's jump ahead. One of the other links I had on here was the St. Paul, Minnesota, and we hear that kids are not only being allowed to pray, but some of the news links are saying that the school districts are providing the prayer rugs.
Yes, they are. I think it was about a year ago, I believe, there was a mom from here in North Carolina who made this home video, and she was showing the homework that her children were bringing home, and it was all in connection with the prayer rugs and the that particular religion. And we can't teach Christianity, but yet we can teach these other religions.
It's really interesting to me when you look at this transformation, if you will, in education, where we are shifting away from academics, reading, writing, math, and history, to the affective, non-cognitive domain where it's all about attitudes, values, beliefs, and behaviors. And then it becomes whose attitudes, values, beliefs, and behaviors trump everything else. And, Frank Gaffney with the Center for Security Policy talks about how in their own documentation of the Muslim Brotherhood, they use the term civilization jihad. And they talk about it in terms of not that there is a violent jihad, which you see with 9/11, and then there is a civilization jihad that is a pre-violent means. And that's not to say that all Muslims are, violent and would do horrible things to our country. But what we are doing, or what we are allowing to happen in our communities, because it's the whole community, whether it's in the schools, whether it's in our churches, we are losing the ability to have situational awareness, because we, in the name of political correctness, they're doing it in the military. You can't use certain terms. That's the problem with this, is that with the religion of Islam, there is Sharia law that is not a religion, but is a governmental law, and that is the danger that we are going down that path, as we're not giving our children the ability to protect themselves and have situational awareness to understand when a threat is coming. And in the name of political correctness, we are being taken down from within by people who adhere to Sharia law.
And we're using our own First Amendment to do it. And I keep reminding people, you don't have to embrace every religion. And what we tend to do is embrace those that people feel like they can't talk about, that they have to whisper about, because we all know what's happened. We all know that, not every Muslim may be a terrorist, but many terrorist activities go back to the Islamic or Muslim roots. And so everybody whispers around it, and instead we find people tiptoeing and bending over backwards on policy to accommodate that religion under the First Amendment, while stomping on the actual true foundations of this country, listed 4 times in the Declaration of Independence, our Judeo-Christian values, the nature's law, God's law, the supreme being, his providence. So, and I use the Declaration as an example because nowhere did they use 4 or 5 gods, 4 or 5 religions. Nowhere did they feel like they had to make it an ecumenical display. It was one God, the one true God, listed 4 different times, 4 different ways in the Declaration of Independence. So those who don't understand that we don't have a separation of church and state, and nor do we have to accommodate others, it just allows everyone the opportunity to choose for themselves. I see the clock. We're coming to a break. We'll be right back. My guest is Alice Linehan, also Lynn Taylor. You can join us right after these messages at 99.3.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live. Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can give these grandkids back, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We can help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah!
If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, I'm J. Michael McCoy, and about 20 years ago, I went to a used car salesman by the name of John Hewitt. He had a little shop over there on North 2nd Avenue called John's Auto Sales, and I bought a car. I found that experience to be one that I had never had before from a used car salesman. He was honest, he was dependable, he had integrity, and he did what he said he was going to do. Well, over the years, between my kids and grandkids, I've purchased 7 vehicles from John's Auto Sales. And last month, I asked him to be a sponsor. I can tell you about their huge selection. I can tell you about their years of experience. I can tell you about their honest integrity. But all I really need to tell you is that I bought 7 cars, and you can trust them. John's Auto Sales, 5435 2nd Avenue, Des Moines.
You need a good ride when you hit the trail. Trust the man with the cars, and he goes by the name of Big John. Big John. Big John. From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
And thanks for staying tuned with us. I am Tamara Scott. You're listening to Truth for Our Time on 99.3 FM if it's Sunday at noon, or you might be joining us live at 10 a.m. Fridays at Webcast One Live Studios, webcastonelive.com. Thanks for tuning in either way. So much happening out there, and it can be frightening. And we're not even sure sometimes which could possibly be true and which is possibly just a link that's been passed erroneously, but joining me today are Lynn Taylor. Lynn Taylor is the Common Core diva. You follow her and her warnings on federalized education, whether it's the Common Core, whether it's the SBAC, a Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium, whether it's the new alignment with career to work, or Lynn, give us all the little acronims that they use for that. And I want to bring in, too, Alice is with us, too, if she wants to join at any point in the conversation. But, we can't even keep up with all the codes.
I know we've jokingly called it the alphabet soup, and I'm sorry, it's the soup I never ever want to have to eat again. Oh my goodness. Okay, you have the ESSA, which is the modern version of the ESEA, and that one is the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965. It got revamped into No Child Left Behind, which has now been codified into the ESSA, which is the Every Student Succeeds Act. And what's interesting, you brought up the fact here, Tamara, that we have so much erroneous misinformation. You will hear from Washington to a lot of what I call the pro-Common Core machine members tell you that ESSA, the Every Student Succeeds Act, replaces No Child Left Behind. Absolutely not. If you go and you read it as much as I have, you will see that every bit of not only the ESEA, the original Education Act of 1965, has been taken in, but every bit of the No Child Left Behind has. And what is so scary about the ESSA is, we heard this before it was ever passed. It was going to make No Child Left Behind look like chump change. It absolutely does. You also have what we call the WIOA, which is the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. That act was passed by Congress as well, and the President as law, and that is from your U.S. Department of Labor. So we have a double whammy here. We have the ESSA from the Department of Education. We have the WIOA from the Department of Labor, and as Alice and I and several of us have talked about on Women on the Wall, WIOA went first because you had to get the career pathways, the college career readiness in place, and it is embedded 21 different times in that particular law. Then you come in and you restructure the No Child Left Behind into the Every Student Succeeds Act, And the only missing link for the total alignment from birth to grade is going to be what is called the HEA, or the Higher Education Act. Now, it was renewed not 2 weeks after the ESSA passed, but it was renewed not in its entirety, but just so that the Perkins funding could be continued to continue all those career tech, which is the adult Common Core courses, so that the students could continue on in their classes and continue on.
So when we hear people say STEM, science, technology, is it electronics and math?
It's science, technology, engineering.
Engineering and math. Engineering and math, that's right. It's been a while since I've had my head in this game.
You also have the STEM to STEAM movement, and the STEM to STEAM movement is simply the science, technology, education, math, over to science, technology, engineering, the arts, and math. And so the arts were totally Common Core aligned back in June of 2015. So all your national humanities, your national arts councils, your museums, your libraries, and STEM actually is a product of the National Science Foundation and the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology. And they dreamed that little agenda point up back in 2009. There was a report that was given to the president. It's one of the few documents that he took with him into his presidency. And if you read that particular document, Tamara, you will find STEM is not about education. It is about a STEM nation, a STEM workforce, a STEM civilization. I mean, we've always had science, technology, engineering, and math. Why do we have to put it in these terms? It's because it's part of that global UNESCO Agenda 21 green movement genre that you've got going. And the thing that is so excuse me for saying this, because I know this is a Christian show, but the thing that's so damning about this particular STEM report is that it admits it was going to use the just about to be released Common Core standards to usher this in so that the people would not realize that this was a whole movement that our country was going to.
For those of you listening, I have some of the links we're talking about today, whether it's the crazy headlines that you just can't imagine being true, but we find out, unfortunately, they are. I have those on the Truth for Our Time Facebook page. Truth for Our Time Facebook page. Some of the education ones are also on the Stop Common Core Iowa page. And that Common Core, there's a couple of those, so you want to get the right one. That one has the orange Stop Common Core profile picture with the cookie cutter opt-out in the banner. So you can find those there. And then I will try and get the tamarascott.com. This link will be up on tamarascott.com in a couple of days. I usually wait till after it airs on the radio to get that up there. And so when you're talking about all of these issues, we are now hearing more and more people come out on the standardized test. More parents are opting out. More parents are saying no. This, along with educators like the Houston principal, who are now telling parents front up, you don't have a right to be here. I have said this forever. I have said this so many years. I remember being 3 different studios ago. So this has been a while. But your kids are now in a public, if they are in a public school, they are in a governmental system that is usually fenced or has some type of a door that you have to go through, one door. You are identified, an alarm goes off, and you are given a pass if you may or may not enter. You usually have to have notice or permission first. Your children are taught to move only when told, in lines, and to be part of groups. This is similar to a penitentiary. Other than a penitentiary or an asylum, I can't think of anything else you're preparing your children for. We hear more things about think outside of the box, and yet we allow none of that, at the very least, less of that than we ever used to. One of the authors that wrote, I think, the children's books, Ramona, has just turned over 100, I think. And
Beverly Clearly.
Yes, and was talking that she almost failed one of her elementary grades. And today, with Common Core, she'd be done. There would be no comeback. There would be no find your gift. You would be penalized, marginalized, and put in a specific group. Am I correct in that?
Absolutely. That is exactly what's going on. I don't know if everyone has watched Waiting for Superman, but if you have not watched that, I would, because there's one scene, and it broke my heart when I saw this. You had this illustration, and it took this group of students, and there were two mechanized tracks, if you will. And the large group of students went on the higher track. This one child went on the lower track because she did not test as well on test day. And because that one test went on to now label her and determine her future, she was separated, divided, marginalized, and put on a lesser educated track than the others.
All right, ladies. What else do parents out there need? And so for our parents out there who are hearing this and wanting to shut it off, many of them will be listening on a Sunday afternoon and hoping to enjoy their day. And here we are telling them all this that's happening. Folks, you have to understand you must confront the problem before you can fix the problem. You must be aware of it before you can face it and address it. These are your children. These are the only children that God has given you. He gave you specifically those kids He wants you to raise, and He designed for you, and He will equip you for what He has called you to do, whether that's homeschool, find private schooling, whatever it is. But please do not buy the lie, man's lie, that you need to listen to the experts, because we've seen where the experts have gotten us. Ladies, anything to add to that?
I just want to let people know as well, with this whole opt-out movement, that I agree with. The tests are not valid tests. But we need parents to understand that the strategies and tactics that are being used to access our children, that this opt-out movement is actually ushering in something that's even more dangerous, because now they're going to go from one big test to what are called formative assessments, where they are going to be assessing children for an individual portfolio through their daily activities. And we need to not buy into the false narrative that that individual portfolio is a good thing for our children, because now with the ESSA passage, it is shifting to this non-cognitive domain where they are going to be assessing the attitudes, values, beliefs, and behaviors of our children from preschool through the workforce, and creating an individual portfolio that the state and federal government and future employers have access to. That is a very dangerous path that we are going down, and we need to understand it.
And let's remind parents, all those folks you mentioned, employers, governmental agencies, will have access. But will parents who aren't even allowed on the property in Houston, Texas, according to Principal Ray, have access?
Supposedly they will, but that I really highly question. I mean, I do know Alice is exactly right. It is going to stretch not just from preschool, though. They're going to start it at birth. I know I attended a couple of days ago the birth through third grade ESSA alignment, and it was absolutely scary, because they are going to, they've latched onto the fact that kids learn much earlier than just preschool. And the whole gist is that from birth to, say, pre-kindergarten, we have to have them school ready. Well, whose definition of school ready are we supposed to be using? According to this particular federal law, their law. Now, supposedly the states are supposed to get their domain back when it comes to education. But yet, if you look at all the hoops that these states are going to have to jump through, I think they're either going to choke on it because they've not had to do it before, or we're forgetting that on page 33 of the ESSA, it specifically says states must. It doesn't say they could or they couldn't. It says they must submit every educational plan to the Federal Department of Education, and the Secretary of Education either gives it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. This includes those assessments. But one other thing that I'd like to point out, with the $849 million that has been earmarked in the ESSA for the digital conversion to these personal learning profiles and to this money following the child sort of setup, it is going to not only supposedly remove these opt-out assessments, it's going to get them further away from the parents so they don't have the right to opt out. This is what is so dangerous.
Explain that again. They will be further removed from the parents, so they will not have the right. Parents will not, at this point, will not have the right to opt out.
It absolutely is going that way. Yes, Tamara, it absolutely is. Because if we can get all this digital stuff in the classroom, and we're not making as much noise about these big assessments that everyone's opting out of, how's a parent going to be able to opt out? They won't be able to, because it will be done almost daily.
And they
won't even know.
That's the concern. They won't even know. And I know we're going into a break here in just a minute, but and for those of listening, for those of you who are on this, you are the warriors. You get this, and maybe repeating some information for you. But for those of you who haven't heard it, do not assume that these assessments we're talking about are totally academic related, totally on the classroom grading. They are personal information about your family, behaviors, beliefs. I'm correct in that, ladies?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the information you will not know is being canvassed from your family, held and used in whatever fashion to determine whatever future that bureaucrats decide your child should have. That's the alarm for most parents. I am here with Alice Linehan, here with Lynn Taylor. We're talking about just the crazy headlines of the day. We'll be back, and I think we may actually have a representative joining us talking about the budget here in Iowa. Stay tuned.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Hobbs.
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed. Fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money-back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
if you're not happy, we're going to make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
And thank you for listening in. I am Tamara Scott with Truth for Our Time, offering you help when the headlines hit home. And today on show with me have been Lynn Taylor, the Common Core diva, educating us on the education arena and various aspects, and Alice Linehan, who is with Women on the Wall conference calls you can listen into weekly, or voicesempower.org, where you can find her blogs. Now, I'm so thrilled they've joined us today. I'm putting them on hold, ladies. I didn't have a chance to warn you off air. I'm putting you on hold. Joining me is Representative Chip Baltimore, right here in Iowa. Chip is in the State House. He serves Greene County because we were there last night. Good evening, Chip.
Oh, good evening, Tamara. How are you?
I am well. I'm sure I'm better than you're doing. Is it true you just got out of the dentist chair?
I did. But it's better than doing my taxes this weekend, so I'm thrilled.
I'm just so impressed that you're in that great of shape. If you had any work done at all, that you can. No Novocaine. I mean, I would think you're numb.
Well, I usually speak better with half of my face numb, so I think we're all right.
Well, thank you for taking time to join us. I heard Representative
My pleasure.
Baltimore speak last night in Greene County at a fundraiser, and he just so succinctly gave us the budget. And so I had asked him to join us, and I heard he was having dental work, and I X'd him out, and here he is. You can't keep a good guy down. This is amazing. Give our listeners this rundown you gave us on the budget in Iowa. Sure,
Absolutely. Our general fund budget this year in Iowa has been agreed upon at $7.349 billion. So that's billion with a B.
7.349 billion with a B. And is that more than we've ever had before?
I believe it is. Here's the real sum and substance of what we're talking about, especially when it comes to education funding, is we are anticipated to receive next year $180 million more than we received this year. We hope we receive it, but those are the projections and the numbers that we're forced to work with. So it's $180 million, and so much of the media discussion and debate has been about what's our priority here in the state of Iowa. Is education funding truly a priority? Because House Republicans, we came in with a 2% increase for supplemental state aid for our K through 12 schools. And we were roundly criticized by all sorts of people that simply wasn't enough, and we weren't putting education as a priority. But here's what, and ultimately we reached a compromise with the Senate that was going to be 2.25%. So we increased that by 0.25%. But here's what that comes down to. It comes down to 2.25% is $152 million. More that K through 12 education is going to receive in this state next year over this year. So out of $180 million, we put $152 million of that towards K through 12 education. It's like 87% of all the new money that we're going to get is going to go straight to K through 12 education, which only leaves us with $28 million to cover all of the increases in all of the other areas of state government, which really is not much at all.
Go ahead.
That's the challenge, And so when you hear out there and you read in certain media outlets, or you hear from certain educators that the state government does not put education as a priority, those are the numbers, and the numbers speak for themselves.
This is what I wanted our listeners to hear, because too often we hear Republicans cut the budget, when in fact they're actually getting an increase. It's just not as much as they wanted.
Well, and that's exactly it. And when you compare the budget now to the budget my first year in office, which was 2011, back then we passed a general fund budget that was just slightly under $6 billion. Now it's $7.35 billion, basically. So we've increased, the total general fund spending by $1.35 billion, almost 25% over the last 6 years. Of that increase, over $500 million has gone to K through 12 education. Over $500 million each year more is going to K through 12 education now than went through to K through 12 education in 2011.
Over $500 million more each year goes to K-12.
Right. Now, if that's not a priority, I can't tell you what is. Now, this is on top of the other problems that we have in the state budget, which are Medicaid increases that are being forced upon us by the federal government. We can't control necessarily our spending on that because the federal government reimburses the state for Medicaid expenditures, and they keep cutting our reimbursement rate that they reimburse us for. So the state has to pick up more and more of that Medicaid tab.
Did you all see that when the so-called Affordable Care Act came in? Did you all see this coming down the pike?
Oh, absolutely. Anybody that's got some financial sense and some economic sense and puts numbers before emotions could see that coming.
Okay, so you've got you've got to pick up Medicaid increases. What else out of that $27 million that you have left? What else do you have to cover?
Well, we have to cover increases in state employee salaries. A lot of that is collectively bargained. So, there are union contracts that require pay increases, step increases in pay. We have to pick up increases in health insurance costs for state employees out of that. We've got transportation funding that we need to take care of. We've got the Regent University. The Iowa State and University of Iowa and University of Northern Iowa have to be any increases there have to be covered by that as well. Just to give you a hint of this, I serve on the Justice Systems Budget Subcommittee, and the Justice Systems deals with the Department of Corrections, which are our state prisons, and the Division of Criminal Investigation. It deals with the Department of Public Safety, which includes our state troopers. It includes the judicial branch, the entire judicial branch. It covers the Attorney General's office. It covers the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Human Rights, the Civil Rights Commission. It covers all these different areas under that. They came in this year asking for an increase of $25 million to cover their personnel cost increases and some small program expansion in different areas. We've got positions, state trooper positions that are not being filled because they're asking for funds for that, and we haven't been able to give it to them. So their increase alone, just for that smaller piece of the pie, was $25 million, and we only have $27 million to work with.
You're down to $2. You got $2 million left. So here's what I wanted people to understand. First off, they get increases, they still call it cuts. But we keep throwing more money at the pot, and even as Republicans, we hear great criticism as Republicans for this growing budget. We don't want to grow government. We want to grow private sector. We want to take the burden off the taxpayers. And so we're still seeing this increase, but I wanted people to hear out of that $180 million that Chip, if I understand this right, we don't have it in the bank. This is what we think will come in extra.
Well, and that's exactly right. And that's a great point, Tamara, and I'm glad you brought that up because we are working based upon projections. We're required to work on projections made in December and then again in March of this year for the year, the fiscal year that starts this coming July. And so it's this coming July of 2016 through June of 2017, and we don't know whether or not those projections are going to come in. Over the last few years, there's been a great deal of howling, primarily by Democrats. I hate to make it partisan, but it really has been, that we had this ending balance. Basically, our tax revenues came in more than what we had budgeted for. And the cry was always, we need to spend that money. We shouldn't be hanging on to it. And House Republicans primarily, along with the governor, we held firm and said, no, we need to keep that in reserve. Well, at one point in time, that grew to $800 million or so, which is a pretty sizable sum. And I'm not a big believer that government should be hoarding cash. But here's the thing. Over the last 2 to 3 years, our revenues have not come in as we've projected. And so when we spend more, we lock that budget in.
Okay, hold on, Chip. We've got to go to a hard break. 10 seconds. We'll be right back after this commercial. We can let you finish that, and then we'll bring our Common Core Diva and Lynn Taylor and Alice Linehan back on as well. Thank you so much, Chip Baltimore. We'll be right back.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can give these grandkids back, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We can help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, I'm J. Michael McCoy, and about 20 years ago, I went to a used car salesman by the name of John Hewitt. He had a little shop over there on North 2nd Avenue called John's Auto Sales, and I bought a car. I found that experience to be one that I had never had before from a used car salesman. He was honest, he was dependable, he had integrity, and he did what he said he was going to do. Well, over the years, between my kids and grandkids, I've purchased 7 vehicles from John's Auto Sales. And last month, I asked him to be a sponsor. I can tell you about their huge selection. I can tell you about their years of experience. I can tell you about their honest integrity. But all I really need to tell you is that I bought 7 cars, and you can trust them. John's Auto Sales, 5435 2nd Avenue, Des Moines.
You need a good ride when you hit the trail. Trust the man with the cars, and he goes by the name of Big John. Big John. Big John. From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Is Lynn Taylor, Common Core Diva, Alice Linehan, voicesempower.org, and we're going to come back to those ladies and discuss more of our crazy headlines. But on the phone with me right now is Representative Chip Baltimore. Chip, what district is it that you're in? What's the house number?
I'm in District 47, so that's most of Boone County and all of Greene County.
Boone and Greene. So we were just talking, and I want you to finish the point you were making before we had to go to break. I apologize for having to interrupt.
Never a problem. You know, the point I was making is that when we lock in budget spending in a particular legislative session, but if the revenues don't come in to meet the projections, then we have to dip into our savings account, which is that ending balance. And a few years ago, we had built that up to about $800 million, and the cry was we needed to spend that. Fortunately, we didn't, because now our ending balance is projected to be virtually zero in a year or two, because the economy is slowing down, especially out in rural Iowa. And what we're seeing is the revenues, even though they're projected, they don't always come in the way we plan. So it's always prudent, conservative budgeting practices to not spend every penny you possibly have, because you never know when the tougher times are going to come.
And whether it's just sound judgment, biblical principle, or the old adage, you don't count your chickens before they're hatched, we all see the problem with this, spending money we don't even have. But we're going to let you go here, Chip, but I thank you so much for coming on with us. And I just want, again, people to understand, you have been asked, forced, pushed, parodied, coerced, demeaned in the media, to have to come on and spend out of this $180 million extra, a whole $150 million K through 12, leaving you only $27 million, of which $25 is being asked for by our state troopers for their needs. You have virtually nothing left.
Well, and the sad thing is, out of the $25 million that are going to go to that were asked for by the Department of Public Safety, they're only going to get $5 million of the 27. That's just the bottom line. And we're trying to spread this out as much as possible, but we can only make it go so far, and there's only so much money there. But I appreciate the opportunity to be on, and I'm always happy to do it, Tamara.
I appreciate. Thank you for laying it out for us, because listeners, when you want to criticize those at the State House, and we all take our shots, we need to think again what they're up against and understand when you hear that they're not giving money to education, it's not that education's not a priority. It's that most of us have figured out money isn't the fix. Chip, are you still on the phone? Do you know how much we give of every tax dollar to education? Is it 56 or 59%?
Yeah, education in general, which includes, I think it's about 44 or 45% of every tax dollar goes to K through 12 education, and I think once you rope in the community colleges and regent universities, I think the total there is about 55 or 56 cents out of every dollar.
All right. Thank you so much. Chip Baltimore has been my guest. I appreciate him popping in with us today. He's a House representative here in Iowa, House District 46, Boone and Greene counties. Thank you, Chip. Ladies.
Thank you.
So that's our budget woes in Iowa. We've been talking about some of the craziness we see in the education systems. I know it's different in your states, but it's not different anywhere that we get beat up if a politician or a candidate won't spend whatever on education. Anytime somebody talks about holding the educational institutions accountable, parents cheer, but it doesn't seem to go very far. Your comments?
Well, I know recently I have been seeing a lot of ire over the fact of people are not fully funding their public schools. And I'm trying to figure out exactly how they figure that their public schools are not fully funded because, as we've said on many conversations together, that our taxes are being used for education in ways we don't approve of. And let me also point out that we're not going to have to look just at our education budgets. We need to look at the money that our departments of commerce, our departments of health and human services, our departments of labor are also receiving from the federal government, because each one of these is tied into the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, the Every Student Succeeds Act, as well as the Higher Education Act. In fact, if you want to get down to the brass tacks of it, the data goes to 9 different federal departments. That goes to your state departments as well. So we've got a lot of hands in the pot that are supposedly in there for either education, as we think education should be, which we are saying should be academic, but it's education from what their viewpoint is, which is a workforce-based one.
And I will post on Truth for Our Time a link of a teacher talking about all the variety of things they do, from putting on Band-Aids to feeding a hot meal. And we'd all want them to take care of our kids in that fashion whenever possible. But that's not what education is about. And neither are many of the things in the video. I'll put it on and you all should just listen to it and just see how much they celebrate that they do that. And at the very end, very, very end, she says, oh, and we teach math, science, and reading. There you go. It's at the bottom of the rung, and too often that's the case in our educational programs. Alice, did you have a comment on this?
Well, one of the things that I think is interesting when you look at this, with the passage of ESSA, and they say that it's giving states their control back, but it's a huge amount of actually unfunded mandates, in that the Secretary of Education has to approve the college and career ready standards in all 50 states. And right now, in the state of Texas, a state that said no to the Common Core, by the way, but said yes to college and career ready standards, we had yesterday, and I'll post this video, at our State Board of Education meeting. We have a wonderful dad, Randy Hutchins, from Leander ISD down by Austin, and he testified yesterday, and he testified to the fact that with the passage of ESSA, the assessments that are being required, because if we take that federal money, are harmful to our children. And there were State Board of Education members who said, well, you need to go across to the legislature and tell them not to take the money. Well, that's good luck with that. But it's a step. And when you have parents who are willing to testify with the statistics and the PowerPoint presentation to show that this is actually harming our children, we need to stand by and give those parents to back them up and to force our legislature to actually look at what's in those budgets and what we're allowing to be imposed on our children. That, in my opinion, is child abuse.
And more are coming out with similar thoughts on that. My guest today has been Lynn Taylor, Common Core Diva, WordPress.com, I believe. Is it .com, Lynn?
Yes, it is. And you can find me on Twitter at Common Core Diva.
And Alice Linehan, you can find her on Twitter as well, or voicesempower.org. Listen, these are your kids. God gave them to you uniquely. You need to train them up. You need to protect them from whatever I didn't know won't cut it when you stand before the Father. You're responsible to find out what's happening. So find a way to get involved. Be encouraged, but never be complacent. Hello, are you still here?
Oh, yep.
There's Alice. Is that Alice?
Yes.
I think I lost Lynn. But thank you guys so much for popping in with me today. And just, I don't know, I feel like we repeat it, and yet it's so convoluted that people can't understand it. You hope somebody gets something.
And I think that's the goal, is to plant the seeds. And even those people that maybe think we're crazy sometimes, by planting the seeds, when they see it in their own child's school, they say, they were right.
Right. Right. You can see them hanging back from you until it happens to their kid, and then they come find you.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
So I appreciate it, all your work, and it's great. And any way I can help, I'm more than happy to.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you. And Lynn, she's already off the phone, but what a blessing to have you both.
Oh, thanks. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.